What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Straight Up RC. This is Chris. You like my poster? It's a nice poster, huh? It's okay if you like my poster. This poster was actually a gift from a buddy Ryan, good buddy of mine. The old cat collector. You can see him all over the Facebook groups. Redcat, oldies but goldies. Really good guy. Hooked up with this poster, so I gotta put it somewhere, and it's awesome. Now, this video is a little late to the game, but it is still in the game for sure. So let's go from there. So shortly after one of the car shows that I had posted up at a while back, a gentleman reached out to me and he asked me if I could help him fix one of his RC cars. He said that he was having trouble with the car, it wouldn't drive right, and it was acting kind of funny. He said that he thinks it's something to do with the transmission. So I told him, sure, I have no problem helping you out. So I got in contact with him, I ended up getting a car from him, and the cool thing about the car in question is it is the Redcat SixtyFour Lowrider, the original one in blue. And what we're going to do in this video is we're going to diagnose and try and repair his transmission for him. First thing first, we got to take the cover off and see what's wrong with it and see if there's anything we can tell right away. So right away we can tell that there is nothing wrong with this main gear. Was expecting to see broken teeth, things like that, but seems to operate and rotate just fine. However, even just rotating the gear like this right now, it's not moving the drivetrain. Like, the car doesn't want to move. So there's clearly something going on in here. So unfortunately, we're gonna have to take that apart and figure out what exactly is going on inside the transmission. So first step to removing the transmission and the motor is to disconnect the motor from the ESC, and then you just have to unbolt the transmission mount from the bottom, disconnect the drive shaft, and it should slide out up the top. Sometimes you have to loosen up the motor a bit or remove it entirely to get it out of the system. So now that we got the motor and the transmission out, we have to remove the drive shaft to split the case. This can be a little tight, so I'm going to do a little trick here where if it's got Loctite and it's tightened, you just kind of tap it a little bit, loosen up and break that Loctite loose, and that'll usually break the threads. You can also use heat, but because it's so close to the transmission casing, it might not be a good idea to use heat, so I use this trick to get the pin out. Once you have the pin out, just remove the 5 screws from the casing and the plate, and you should be able to split it easily. Once you have the screws out, you should be able to remove the cover. So at first glance, it does look fairly decent, but there's the gear strip right there in the center. See the teeth missing right there? There's a piece right here. There's a piece of tooth right there or something. The stripping on this gear is pretty significant. So that tooth right there is like almost entirely gone. I don't know if you can see that here. That tooth right there is like almost all entirely gone. So it probably was sitting just counterclockwise just a little bit where this gear touched this gear, and it was given a little bit of juice, and these teeth all got stripped right off. So unfortunately that's probably the case. But in the top, got a whole bunch of teeth here, so it's gonna have to get cleaned out, fixed, the whole 9 yards. So now that we got our brand new gears, we're gonna go ahead and replace these things and clean this out. You want to clean out everything really good, that way there's no debris left over. Clean the bearings, and we're gonna re-grease things in the end. The cool part about this is Redcat was pretty smart when developing this, and you can't really mess up where the gears go. Because the gears are very specific and they only fit a certain way. So you can't put one gear in the wrong place really, because there's obviously the gear that has 2 gears, and then there's the first drive gear and then the last drive gear. So they fit in a very specific way. You can't really put them in incorrectly. Also, the shafts that are in the gears themselves are very specific, so you can't really put the wrong shaft in the wrong place. And a good rule of thumb is just work on one thing at a time. Take that gear off the shaft, clean it, replace it with the new gear, and that way you know that gear is on the correct shaft. So now that I got all the gears in place and I've got it all nice and cleaned up, I went ahead and put some grease on it and to give it a little test, and she's good to go. I'm only tightening these screws down till they just about stop, and then I'm redoing it by hand. That way I don't strip out the plastic with the tool. Now we just got to put the motor back on the plate, and right now we're going to do a gear mesh reset. And there's another video up on the channel right now that is this exact process, just in a small version. With the gear set or the gear mesh reset, what we're going to do is we're going to just take a little piece of paper, put it between the first gear and the motor pinion gear, and then we're going to squeeze that together, make it nice and tight, but it's still not too tight. Make sure it can rock back and forth. So kind of snug it up, back and forth, and once you have it in place, you're just going to tighten the motor back down. That way the piece of paper is kind of clenched between the two gears. Not too tight, but just enough. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to roll the gear one way or the other and roll the paper back out between the gears. And it's going to crinkle the paper, and that's when you know you've got the gear mesh set just right. If you rip the paper or the paper rips in itself between the gear teeth, you've got it too tight and you probably want to redo it. So now we're just going to put the transmission back in. Just slide it on the chassis plate, get the screw set in real quick, nice and easy. Don't do it too tight because, again, you don't want to strip out the plastic. Now we're going to get the axle back in, and the easiest way to do that is to lift the rear end up as high as you can go and give it some room to travel. And then once you have enough room to get the shaft back inside the drive shaft and then on the output, then you can put the set screw back in and tighten everything back up. You can give it a little bit of a test roll with your fingers when you're done. Now that we got everything buttoned up, we're going to plug the motor back in and button everything down. And here we have it. The transmission, the gears have all been replaced and reinstalled, and we're ready to test it. Turn the remote on, turn the car on, let it connect, and we now have power. So now I can send this car back to the owner so they can take this 64 out and show it off again. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope this helps somebody, at least maybe one person. I had shot this video a while ago, but unfortunately I had some file issues and some lag in production, so I didn't get to put this video out as soon as I wanted to. I wanted to put it out a couple months ago, but like I said, it's a little late to the game, but hopefully it helps somebody out. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like. If you ever see anybody that asks the question of how to do this on any of the channels, any of the pages, feel free to send them a link and tell them, look, here's how to do it. It's a bit of a step-by-step. I know it's sped up, so if there's any questions specifically, feel free to reach out and ask. Also, feel free to subscribe if you haven't already. It's free, and I appreciate it greatly. As always, I will see you guys on the next one.